Hello and welcome to Understanding the Parables. My name is Julian Casillas, and today we're going to walk through how we can unpack a parable in the best possible way. And to do this, we need to understand why Jesus spoke in parables. Parables were simply a story used to illustrate a moral or spiritual lesson during the time of Jesus' ministry. And there's a reason he spoke in this way. Because back in 1st century AD, it was very hard for the average Galatian to even be able to have access to scrolls or the Torah, or even be able to teach what was happening. Not many of them were even very literate or could write. It was very hard for the average person to even be able to do it. Parables thrive off being oral tradition, something that can be passed down no matter what, from the grandfather to the child, from the grandfather to the son. It is something that has been able to be passed down very easily and able to digest no matter who you are. Stories, we all love them. We still see them today. We go to the movies all the time. Jesus wasn't the only one to use these parables. The only person that was able to really use parables and teach in the best way possible was rabbis. And if you weren't a rabbi, you didn't really have access to the Torah. The template that we're going to go through to really digest a parable comes from Craig Blomberg and Robert Stein. Each had differing opinions on how a parable should be interpreted. And I like the 7 questions that came from their pretty much differing opinions. And these 7 questions should help you unpack any parable. And to show you how to do it, we're going to jump into one of the most common parables, the Good Samaritan. I think we've all grown up knowing and loving this story. And the first question we need to ask ourselves, what terms are on repeat? What is the story continuously telling us over and over and over again? And for the Good Samaritan, it's obvious. It's grace. Grace, grace, grace. Who is your neighbor and who do you show grace to? That is what the main term of this parable is. 2, what does the parable dwell upon? To whom does the parable devote the most space to? And in this parable, it's devoting the most space to the 4 people in this parable: the Levite, the Samaritan, the priest, and the Good Samaritan. Who the Good Samaritan is the main topic of this parable, who's been beaten and left for a pulp by robbers. And what is the main contrast in the parable? This is question number 3. When asking this, what's the main contrast? What's the blatant, obvious truth of this? The Samaritan was the one who went and actually helped the person who'd been robbed and left for dead. That's crazy. The Samaritans were not getting along with people back then. And he was the one that actually went back to help the person who was left for dead. 4, what comes at the end of the parable? What happens at the end? The Samaritan is the one who showed grace upon the person who had been robbed. Someone you didn't think it'd be. It should have been the Levite. It should have been the priest. People that know God's word and would have been there to help that person. What is the spoken discourse in this parable? What is the discourse? What's the discussion? The discussion is, who is your neighbor? Who do you show grace to? And it should be whoever decides to show that grace. That is who your neighbor is, who you show grace upon, who you decide to give your time to. 6, what characters appear in the parable, and which are least important, which are the most important? Who is the main topic? And that obviously was the priest, the Levite, and the Samaritan. Who are you in this parable? And that is the next question. How would you have told the parable if Jesus told it differently? And does it reveal anything? Look at yourself. Who are you in the parable? Are you the priest? Someone who's devoted their entire life to God and being the person that God has called you to be? Or are you the Levite, God's chosen people? Today would be us Christians, right? We chose ourselves to be God's people. We want to be Christ-like. Are we the Levites? Or are we going to be the Good Samaritan? Maybe somebody who doesn't believe in God. Maybe somebody who doesn't know what they're going to do. But you know what? They know how to show grace. They know how to give love. Who are you in this parable? We need to understand, with reading this parable, who the Good Samaritan is. It is important to understand who is who and who are you. Luke 10, verse 36, at the end of this parable is so important. Which of these 3 do you think was the neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robber? The expert in the law, who would be the rabbi, replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, and go and do likewise. So for simply today, go and do likewise. Go and show mercy on your neighbors. Mercy on whoever is the one next to you.